On the distant planet of Cygnus 4, in the shadow of its vast, looming citadels and sprawling alien landscapes, a young Zytherian girl named Elara stood bound in chains, her radiant, azure skin shimmering slightly under the harsh lights of the execution arena. The Zytherian's crime was one of compassion, having provided sanctuary to rebels deemed enemies of the oppressive regime governing her sector. The air was thick with tension, the crowd silent, their collective breath caught in anticipation of the grim spectacle. The executioner, a hulking figure clad in the ceremonial garb of the Enforcers Guild, raised his blade, a weapon that hummed with a low, menacing energy capable of severing soul from flesh. Elara's eyes, luminous and vast in their sorrow, scanned the crowd for any sign of mercy, her delicate features set in a brave mask. She had accepted her fate, knowing that her actions, though leading to this dire moment, had saved lives. Yet, there was a flicker of hope, unspoken, that somehow salvation would come. Just as the executioner's blade began its fatal descent, a figure emerged from the crowd, moving with an impossible speed. It was a human, an off-worlder, his features set in a grim line of determination. Jason Maddox was his name, a former captain in the Earth Space Command, now a mercenary caught in the crossfires of interstellar intrigues. With a forceful leap and a well-aimed throw of his stun baton, Jason intercepted the blade, the impact sending a shockwave through the arena. The executioner staggered, disoriented by the unexpected assault, as murmurs of shock and confusion rippled through the gathered masses. Jason's intervention was not merely a spur-of-the-moment act of heroism. He had been on Cygnus 4 tracking a band of pirates when he'd stumbled upon Elara's plight. Moved by her story and the injustice she faced, his mission had changed. Now, he stood in the arena, a defiant figure against the might of a corrupt regime. Under the Galactic Code of Sanctuary, I claim the right to challenge this execution, Jason declared loudly, his voice echoing across the stunned silence. This law, an ancient statute held in the Interstellar Legal Compendium, allowed for a trial by combat should an execution be deemed unjust by an observer. The ruler of Cygnus 4, Lord Vrax, sitting high above the arena in his opulent throne, sneered at the challenge. "Let the human fight, then," he bellowed, amusement clear in his tone. "Let him see how we deal with those who disrupt our laws." Elara was quickly unchained as the arena was cleared for combat. Her eyes met Jason's, her gaze filled with a tumult of emotions, fear, gratitude, and a piercing intensity. "Why risk yourself for me?" she asked, her voice a melodic whisper that only Jason could hear over the din of the crowd. "Because no one should be alone in their darkest moment," Jason replied, offering her a small, reassuring smile as he turned to face the executioner, who was now advancing towards him, blade reignited and deadly. The duel was fierce, the executioner skilled, but Jason was a veteran of many battles. He moved with a precision and a calm that spoke of years in command battles across galaxies. The fight was brutal and swift, and in the end, Jason stood victorious, the executioner defeated but spared death, a statement of Jason's honor and mercy. As the ruling lord reluctantly acknowledged the victory, the arena, filled with citizens who had grown tired of Vrax's harsh rule, erupted in cheers. Jason had not only saved Elara but had ignited a spark of rebellion among the people of Cygnus 4. Elara stood beside Jason, her expression one of awe and newfound resolve. "What now?" she asked as they exited the arena, the cheers of the crowd echoing in their wake. "Now," Jason said, "we fight to free your people." After the dramatic upheaval in the arena, Jason and Elara quickly became symbols of resistance against Lord Vrax's tyranny. Their act of defiance in the public executions sparked conversations and clandestine meetings among various factions dissatisfied with Vrax's rule. As they retreated to a safe house in the lower tiers of the city, Jason began to plan their next moves. The small, dimly lit room was filled with maps of Cygnus 4, communications equipment, and a palpable sense of urgency. "We've struck a chord with the people," Jason observed, his eyes scanning a live feed of city chatter. "We need to keep the momentum going." Elara, still shaken but invigorated by their success, nodded in agreement. "Many are afraid, but your actions have shown them that Vrax is not invincible. We can gather support, but it must be done carefully. They decided to split their efforts to maximize their impact. Jason would work on forming an alliance with the underground networks of mercenaries and disgruntled military units, while Ilara focused on rallying the public, utilizing her status as a once-condemned figure who stood up to Vrax's oppression. Over the following days, their plan began to take shape. Jason met with leaders of various factions in shadowy corners and secluded meeting spots. His reputation as a skilled tactician and his display of valor in the arena lent him an aura of credibility that few could ignore. He spoke passionately about the need for a united front, about fighting not just for the overthrow of a despot but for the foundation of a system that would ensure such tyranny could never arise again. Meanwhile, Ilara used underground broadcasts to speak to the citizens of Cygnus 4. Her messages were filled with hope and a call to action, urging her people to stand up for their rights and for the future of their children. Her voice, once soft and melodic, now carried a firm resolve that resonated deeply with those who heard her. As their movements grew, so did the crackdown from Vrax's regime. Patrols increased, and informants were everywhere. It became increasingly dangerous for Jason and Ilara to coordinate their efforts, but the growing unrest gave them cover. Small acts of defiance began to spread across the city, graffiti denouncing Vrax, workers slowing their output in state factories, and merchants hiding messages of rebellion in their goods. The tension reached a boiling point when a group of factory workers was arrested and threatened with public execution, a clear message from Vrax to quell the rising dissent. This act, however, only fueled the flames of rebellion. Jason, upon hearing the news, slammed his fist against the wall in frustration. "We can't let those workers die. It's exactly what he wants, to scare us into submission." Ilara placed a calming hand on his arm. "Then we use this. We turn his attempt to scare us into our rallying cry. We save them, Jason. We show everyone that we're here to fight, to save each other." The plan was risky. They would stage a rescue operation in broad daylight during the execution. It would be their statement, their declaration of war against Vrax's rule. The day of the execution arrived, and the air was thick with tension. As the workers were led onto the platform, their faces resigned to their fate. Jason, Ilara, and a team of their most trusted allies positioned themselves among the crowd. At the given signal, they struck, using a combination of smoke bombs and precise strikes to disarm the guards and free the prisoners. The operation was a success. The workers were saved, and the crowd, witnessing this bold act of defiance, erupted into cheers. The rebellion had truly begun. The successful rescue of the workers marked a significant turning point in the rebellion against Lord Vrax. Energized by their victory and the swelling support from the public, Jason and Ilara began to organize a more structured resistance movement. They established cells across Cygnus 4, each responsible for different sectors of the uprising, from logistics and communications to active combat operations. Ilara became the voice of the rebellion, her broadcasts not only a beacon of hope but also a means of coordinating the underground efforts. Her messages were coded, with plans and instructions woven into the stories of those who had suffered under Vrax's rule, stories that resonated with the citizens of Cygnus 4. Meanwhile, Jason focused on the military aspects. With his background in tactical warfare, he trained the rebel fighters in guerrilla tactics that could counteract the superior firepower of Vrax's forces. Under his guidance, the rebels learned to strike quickly and vanish, keeping the regime's soldiers perpetually unsettled and unable to secure key territories. As their forces grew stronger, Vrax's desperation became evident. He enforced draconian laws and executed daily raids in an attempt to crush the insurrection. But each oppressive act only drew more citizens to the rebel cause. The fear he once wielded as a weapon began to crumble, replaced by a collective courage among the people. During a covert meeting in an abandoned factory complex on the outskirts of the capital, Jason and Ilara laid out the plans for their next major operation, the siege of Vrax's communications hub. Taking over the hub would not only cripple Vrax's ability to coordinate his forces but also allow the rebels to broadcast their message directly to every corner of the planet. "The time has come to escalate our efforts," Jason told the gathered leaders of the rebel cells. If we take the hub, we control the narrative. Vrax's grip on the people will weaken significantly. Ilara added, this is more than a tactical victory, it's a symbol. We'll show that we can breach his stronghold, that his power is not absolute. The plan was set into motion. Diverse teams, each with specific roles, infiltrated different parts of the city, moving stealthily to avoid detection. As the attack commenced, a coordinated series of diversions drew Vrax's forces out, thinning the defenses around the communications hub. Ilara led the main assault team, with Jason providing overwatch from a nearby rooftop. The fighting was intense, the air filled with the roar of blasters and the sharp cries of battle. Step by step, they fought their way into the hub, overcoming each layer of security with a mix of precision and raw determination. Finally, after hours of fierce combat, the rebels secured the hub. Ilara immediately set up the broadcast equipment, her hands steady even as the battle raged on outside. She began to speak, her voice clear and strong, echoing across every broadcast channel on the planet. People of Cygnus 4, this is Ilara. Today, we have taken a stand against tyranny. Today, we show that we are not afraid, that together, we are unstoppable. Join us as we fight for our freedom, for our future. Across the cities and villages of Cygnus 4, people gathered around screens and radios, listening to her words, feeling the stirrings of hope and the call to action. The rebellion swelled as thousands more were inspired to join the cause. In the aftermath of the broadcast, the morale among Vrax's forces began to waver. Many deserted, no longer willing to fight for a cause they did not believe in. Vrax, now truly alarmed, retreated further into his fortress, his plans of suppression failing one by one. The rebellion's surge following the capture of the communications hub marked a pivotal shift in the conflict on Cygnus 4. With the hub as their command center, Ilara and Jason orchestrated a series of strategic strikes against Lord Vrax's remaining strongholds. Each victory chipped away at the infrastructure of Vrax's regime, isolating him further within his fortress. As the network of rebels expanded, Jason took charge of consolidating their gains, fortifying positions, and maintaining the momentum of their offensive. He understood that while morale was high, the real battle, the one that would end Vrax's tyranny, loomed ahead. Ilara, meanwhile, continued to be the voice and heart of the uprising. Her broadcasts not only informed the populace of their victories but also reinforced the ideological foundation of their fight. She spoke of a future where fear was no longer the currency of power, where freedom and justice were rights, not privileges. In a strategy meeting with their top advisors, Jason laid out the plan for what he believed would be the final assault on Vrax's fortress. We have momentum on our side, he stated, pointing to a holographic map of the fortress and its defenses. Vrax is weakened, but he's not defeated. We expect he'll be heavily fortified, but we have an inside advantage. He revealed that a group of Vrax's own officers, disillusioned with their leader's descent into madness, had covertly reached out to the rebels, offering vital intelligence. This included security layouts, patrol schedules, and the fortress's structural vulnerabilities. With this information, the rebels could infiltrate the fortress with a precision strike aimed directly at toppling Vrax from power. Ilara added, this is more than a military operation. It's the culmination of everything we've fought for. We'll liberate Cygnus 4, but we must also ensure we protect its people. Casualties must be minimized. The final operation began under the cover of darkness. Small teams, comprised of the rebellion's best fighters, moved stealthily through the city, converging on designated points around the fortress. Ilara led one of the teams, her determination a palpable force. Jason coordinated the overall assault from the communications hub, his focus absolute as he monitored the progress of each team, adjusting strategies in real time. The tension was palpable, each moment stretching out as the teams breached the fortress's outer defenses. Inside the fortress, alarms blared, and chaos ensued as Vrax's forces scrambled to repel the invaders. But the rebels were too coordinated, too driven to be held back. Fighting through corridors and up levels, they pushed towards the fortress's command center. Ilara's team reached the central chamber first. Bursting through the doors, they found Vrax, haggard and wild-eyed, his personal guard ready to defend him to the death. The battle that ensued was fierce and brief, Vrax's forces outmatched and overwhelmed. With the chamber secured, Jason arrived, just as Vrax was taken into custody. The tyrant's reign had ended, his rule shattered by the very people he had sought to subdue. In the aftermath, as the sun rose over a free Cygnus IV, Ilara and Jason stood together amidst the ruins of the fortress. Around them, rebels and citizens alike began to gather, their faces weary but filled with hope. Ilara addressed the crowd, her voice echoing through the crisp morning air. "Today, we reclaim our home. But tomorrow we rebuild. Together, we will forge a future worthy of the sacrifices made. A future where liberty shines brighter than any tyranny." The cheers that followed rang out not just through the fortress, but across the planet, a chorus of freedom that marked the dawn of a new era for Cygnus IV. With the oppressive regime of Lord Vrax dismantled, the real work began for Ilara and Jason. Liberation had been achieved, but the landscape of Cygnus IV was scarred by years of tyranny and conflict, demanding a reconstruction that was both physical and societal. Ilara, once a symbol of resistance, now had to transition into a leader of peace. She established a provisional government, inviting leaders from various factions and districts to participate. It was a delicate balancing act, managing the diverse aspirations and historical grievances of each group. Transparency and inclusivity, which had been hallmarks of their rebellion, now shaped her governance. Jason, meanwhile, took on the role of security advisor, focusing on integrating various militia groups into a formal planetary defense force. His aim was not just to protect Cygnus IV from external threats, but to prevent the rise of another despot. His days were filled with training sessions and strategy meetings, creating protocols that emphasized defense over aggression. One of their first initiatives was the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, a forum designed to air grievances and heal the wounds of Vrax's reign. It was a contentious but necessary process, aimed at fostering unity and understanding among the populace. Ilara often attended these sessions personally, lending her support and ensuring that the voices of the oppressed were heard and acknowledged. As the capital city began to physically rebuild, so too did its cultural identity. Ilara sponsored festivals and public forums, celebrating the diverse heritage of Cygnus IV's citizens. Art and expression flourished, filling the city with color and life, symbols of their newfound freedom. However, challenges were inevitable. Dissident groups, remnants of Vrax's loyalists, occasionally stirred trouble, aiming to destabilize the fragile peace. Jason's defense force handled these threats with a measured response, always careful to act within the legal bounds established by the new government, avoiding the heavy-handed tactics that had once been the norm under Vrax. Amidst this backdrop of rebuilding and reform, Ilara faced personal challenges as well. Leading a planet was a role she had never envisioned for herself, and the burden of expectations was heavy. She often found solace in her close relationship with Jason, who not only provided counsel but reminded her of the reasons they fought for freedom. Together, they visited various parts of the planet, not as rulers, but as citizens, listening to the stories of their people, sharing in their trials and triumphs. These visits helped to ground their policies in the real needs and hopes of the populace. On the anniversary of their victory, Ilara organized a Remembrance Day, honoring those who had fallen in the fight against Vrax. It was a solemn occasion, but also a celebration of resilience. Standing before a massive crowd, Ilara gave a speech that resonated across Cygnus IV. "Today, we remember the cost of our freedom, and we reaffirm our commitment to safeguard this precious gift," Ilara declared. "Our journey is far from over, but every step we take is a step away from our past shadows and towards the light of a promising future." The event not only commemorated the past but also solidified the hope for Cygnus IV's future, a future crafted by the collective will of its people, led by those who had once stood in the very heart of the struggle. As Cygnus IV blossomed under its new governance, Ilara and Jason continued to face the intricate dance of leadership and diplomacy. The planet was becoming a testament to what could be achieved through unity and democratic ideals, but the path was inevitably laden with the complexities of political realities and the shadows of past conflicts. In the years that followed the overthrow of Lord Vrax, Cygnus 4 carved out a reputation within the galaxy as a center of innovation and a sanctuary for those fleeing oppression. The quantum core extractor, once a symbol of contention, now powered the planet's capital, its energy harnessed to promote growth and sustainability. This transformation became one of Ilara's proudest achievements, embodying her vision of using technology for the welfare of all. Meanwhile, Jason, who had once thought of leaving Cygnus 4 after the revolution, found himself deeply invested in the planet's future. His expertise and leadership had been crucial in establishing a robust and ethical security framework, which not only protected Cygnus 4 but also extended its peacekeeping efforts to neighboring systems, often mediating in conflicts that threatened regional stability. Yet, even as they celebrated numerous successes, challenges persisted. Economic disparities, though significantly alleviated, still existed. Ilara initiated a series of economic reforms aimed at improving the living standards of the planet's most impoverished areas. Programs in education, healthcare, and job training were expanded, funded by the revenues from their now thriving tech industries. Jason spearheaded the formation of the Cygnian Peace Corps, an organization dedicated to aiding worlds ravaged by war and disaster. This initiative not only helped others but also served as a diplomatic bridge, forging alliances and fostering goodwill towards Cygnus 4 across the galaxy. The heart of their leadership, however, was tested when a drought struck the agricultural sector of Cygnus 4, threatening food supplies and causing widespread panic. Ilara and Jason responded by mobilizing the entire community, implementing large-scale water conservation projects and importing necessary resources. Their swift and effective management of the crisis reinforced the population's faith in their leaders. Their personal relationship, strengthened by years of shared challenges and triumphs, became a cornerstone of their lives. Publicly, they were leaders, partners in governance. Privately, they were confidants, friends, and eventually, life partners, their bond a symbol of the harmony they aspired to create for their world. As Cygnus 4 prepared to commemorate a decade of freedom, Ilara and Jason stood together before a massive crowd, now not just as leaders but as a family, their young daughter beside them. The celebration was vibrant, reflecting the diverse and dynamic culture of a free Cygnus 4. Ilara addressed the gathering, her voice resonant and full of emotion. Today, we celebrate not just a decade of freedom, but a decade of growth, of overcoming adversity together. We look forward not just to years, but to generations of peace and prosperity. Jason, too, spoke, his words echoing Ilara's sentiment. Our journey was never just about us. It was about all of us, about building a world where everyone can thrive. And though challenges lie ahead, our commitment to this dream remains unshaken. The ceremony ended with a display of lights in the sky, each burst a reminder of their fiery trials and their luminous victories. The people of Cygnus 4 looked up, their faces alight with hope, their hearts full of dreams, secure in the knowledge that their leaders would guide them with wisdom and integrity into the future.